In the 1930s, American aviation was undergoing a true revolution. The U.S. Navy was searching for a new amphibious aircraft to patrol vast ocean spaces. At the center of this story was the Consolidated Aircraft Company, which, under the leadership of the talented designer Isaac Ladden, created an aircraft that entered history as the PBY Catalina. The Consolidated Aircraft Company, founded by Reuben Fleet, was mainly engaged in training aircraft for the Army and Navy by the early 1930s. However, Fleet dreamed of more. He wanted to create large multi-engine machines that interested the U.S. Navy. In 1927, he invited Isaac Ladden, an experienced designer who had previously worked on long-range aircraft at Boeing, to join. Ladden brought to Consolidated a vision of revolutionary solutions, which became decisive in the creation of the PBY. At the beginning of the 1930s, the U.S. Navy announced a competition for the development of a new patrol amphibious aircraft. The technical requirements were very demanding. The machine had to fly almost 5,000 kilometers at a speed of 160 kilometers per hour and weigh over 11 tons. Consolidated submitted to the competition its prototype, which was to become the basis for the future Catalina. But competition was serious. Douglas, a company known for its multi-engine aircraft, presented its own prototype. Both aircraft successfully passed tests, showing similar flight capabilities and fully meeting the Navy's requirements. The aircraft from Consolidated had a unique design: a single wing placed high above the hull, floats that folded into the wing, and an aluminum frame with partial fabric covering. Ladden and his team received a patent for this design on July 31, 1934, which emphasized its novelty. The Douglas prototype, although based on a proven bomber design, was less revolutionary but still competitive. The decisive factor was price. Consolidated offered to produce a batch of amphibious aircraft for $90,000 per unit, while Douglas asked for $110,000. The difference of $20,000 on each aircraft was key. The U.S. Navy chose Consolidated, signing a contract on October 28, 1933 for the development and construction of a prototype. The development of the PBY was the result of Ladden's many years of experience. Even before working at Consolidated, he had directed projects for long-range amphibious aircraft, and his cooperation with Igor Sikorsky on a bomber gave valuable experience in building heavy machines. Although that bomber lost to a competitor, the lessons learned during its development helped Ladden create his new aircraft. This aircraft would become the foundation for the serial PBY, which would soon receive the name Catalina, and change perceptions of what amphibious aircraft could do. The design was impressive for its time. The wing, mounted on a strut above the hull, was supported by struts, while the folding floats reduced air resistance. The hull boat consisted of 5 watertight compartments, which ensured buoyancy even when damaged. The wing covering combined aluminum and fabric, making the aircraft light but strong. Engines with a power of 825 horsepower provided reliability, while triple adjustable pitch propellers optimized flight performance. In 1935, the prototype XP3Y-1 from Consolidated Aircraft arrived at the Norfolk Air Base for tests that would determine its fate as the future PBY Catalina. This stage was decisive in bringing the design to mass production. The U.S. Navy required the new amphibious aircraft not only to meet strict technical requirements, a flight range of 4,828 kilometers, a normal speed of 160 kilometers per hour, and a takeoff weight of 11,340 kilograms, but also to prove its reliability in real conditions. The tests revealed both the strengths of the prototype and a number of problems that needed refinement, laying the foundation for the Catalina's success. Construction of the XP3Y-1 was completed at the Consolidated plant in Buffalo at the beginning of 1935. To avoid delays due to the freezing of the Niagara River, the aircraft was shipped by rail to Norfolk. There, in March, it was assembled and underwent ground checks. On March 21st, company test pilot Bill Wheatley made the first flight, which went without incident. By March 28th, the prototype was delivered to the Navy's testing center in Anacostia for military trials. The aircraft's design was striking: a high-mounted parasol wing, folding floats that became part of the wing, and 5 watertight compartments in the hull provided a unique combination of aerodynamics and buoyancy. Tests at Anacostia revealed the strengths of the XP3Y-1 but also showed shortcomings. The main problem was insufficient directional stability, which complicated control. During bomb-dropping trials in May-June 1935, the aircraft showed significant loads on the rudder, reducing accuracy. An attempt to increase the rudder area led to higher control forces, requiring further changes. In July, during a landing in Norfolk, the XP-3Y1 received a hull puncture, but its watertight compartments saved it from sinking, confirming the reliability of the design. After repairs, the tests continued. The Navy's Flight Test Board compiled a report declaring the XP-3Y1 suitable for mass production, but with recommendations for improvements. First, it was proposed to add a gun position to cover the rear lower sector, which later became known as the tunnel mount. Second, the side gun positions needed protection from the incoming airflow. Third, the bomb suspension system had to be simplified, and the nose turret refined for greater efficiency. Most importantly, the rudder had to be improved for better directional stability. These recommendations became the foundation for the transition from prototype to the serial PBY-1. On June 29, 1935, the U.S. Navy ordered 60 PBY-1 aircraft, and Consolidated began preparing for production at a new plant in San Diego. Changes were made to the design, a new rudder was installed, the shape of the tail section of the fuselage was altered, the nose turret and engine nacelles were refined, and the aircraft were equipped with production Pratt & Whitney R1830 64 engines with 900 horsepower. The prototype XP-3Y1, after modifications, received the designation XPBY-1 and retained serial number BU-NO 9459. The addition of the letter B indicated the aircraft's ability to carry a significant bomb load. On May 21, 1936, Bill Wheatley test flew the modified XPBY-1, after which the aircraft was handed over to the Navy for final trials. Tests confirmed the improvements, though the control problem was only finally solved in later versions, such as the PBN-1 and PBY-6A, thanks to a complete redesign of the tail unit. The success of the trials was reinforced by another order. On July 25, 1936, the Navy ordered 50 PBY-2s even before delivery of the first serial PBY-1, showing the Navy's confidence in the new aircraft. Mass production of the PBY-1 began in San Diego, and in September 1936, the first aircraft was accepted into service. On October 5th, it was handed over to a Navy crew at the Lindbergh Field Plant, after which it was towed to the North Island base. The first combat unit to receive the PBY-1 was Patrol Squadron VP-11F, but VP-6F was the first to fully re-equip with these aircraft. Armament of the PBY-1 included one 7.6mm machine gun in the nose turret, two of the same type in side mounts with sliding hatches, and one in the tunnel position. Strike armament consisted of four 147-kilogram depth charges, bombs weighing 226 to 453 kilograms, or two MiG-14 torpedoes. The machine gun ammunition load was 1,000 rounds each, except for the tunnel gun, which had 500. In 1939, the U.S. Navy considered the PBY-4 model obsolete, as new seaplanes with 2 and 4 engines were already undergoing tests. However, the Catalina retained its place thanks to large foreign orders. The United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, France, and the Netherlands ordered an export model that became the foundation for mass production. These orders saved the aircraft from being discontinued, as it proved to be the only available machine capable of meeting the urgent needs of countries preparing for war. In November 1940, British pilots named the PBY Catalina after the resort island off the coast of California, in line with their system of naming foreign aircraft. This name officially took hold in the United States in 1941, when the Americans adopted the British practice. Canadian pilots called their aircraft Canso and Canso-A depending on the type. Unique as well was the name Nomad Mokrenin, given to the improved PBN-1 variant produced in 1944-1945 in the United States. In December 1939, the U.S. Navy signed a contract for the delivery of 200 PBY-5 aircraft, the largest order for seaplanes since World War I. This contract was driven by the need for the Neutrality Patrol, introduced in September 1939 to monitor coastal waters. The PBY-5 was equipped with powerful engines, allowing it to reach a speed of 322 kilometers per hour and a flight range of 162 kilometers. New side gun positions replaced the old hatches, and powerful machine guns became standard armament. The round antenna was moved to the front part of the wing, improving flight performance. The first PBY-5s entered service in September 1940, and in 1941 the Navy ordered another 90 aircraft. The United Kingdom received 106 aircraft beginning in November 1940. These machines were ferried through the United States by civilian pilots to Bermuda, from where British crews delivered them to England. The first Catalinas were received by 2 squadrons of the Royal Air Force Coastal Command. American Navy pilots, experienced with the PBY, helped their British colleagues master the new aircraft. Australia ordered 18 Catalinas, Canada 36 aircraft, the Netherlands 36 for their colonial forces, and 30 aircraft originally ordered by France were transferred to the United Kingdom after France's occupation. Export Catalinas had the same design as the American versions, but differed in special equipment such as radios or rescue gear, depending on buyer requirements. In 1937, the Soviet Union purchased 3 aircraft and a license for their production, and by 1941 had produced at least 150 machines. These aircraft were fitted with engines from other manufacturers, which was a rare exception. One of the brightest examples of the Catalina's capabilities was its ocean flights. In January 1937, a squadron ferried 12 aircraft from San Diego to Hawaii in 21 hours and 48 minutes. In April, another squadron repeated this route with the same number of aircraft, and in June, a third squadron delivered 23 aircraft to a base in the Panama Canal Zone, covering 52 to 97 kilometers in 27 hours and 58 minutes. All of these flights took place without accidents, demonstrating the Catalina's reliability and long range. In 1939, an aircraft for British trials was ferried from San Diego to England, completing the first transatlantic flight of a military aircraft during World War II. In total, more than 3,300 of these aircraft were produced in various versions, including those that landed only on water and those that could land both on water and land. This made the Catalina the most popular seaplane in history. Thanks to its versatility and ability to perform a wide range of missions, from guarding ocean spaces to rescue operations, the Catalina became a key element of Allied strategies. Its contribution to operations such as the detection of the German battleship Bismarck secured its status as a legend. Large-scale production of the new PBY-5 and PBY-5A models, the latter capable of landing on land, began in 1940-1941. The design of the PBY-5 included powerful 1,200 horsepower engines, machine gun positions, and an improved tail. The PBY-5A model, first tested in November 1939, had retractable landing gear that allowed it to land both on water and land. The increase in weight by 1,000 kilograms was offset by enhanced versatility. The U.S. Navy initially ordered 33 such aircraft in 1940, followed by more. A Canadian plant in Vancouver produced 55 amphibious aircraft assembled from American components. The Catalina carried out a wide variety of missions. Its primary role was patrolling ocean spaces, searching for enemy ships and submarines. The aircraft was equipped with radar, which allowed it to operate effectively at night and in poor weather. In May 1941, a Catalina of a British squadron, piloted by American pilot L.T. Smith, detected the German battleship Bismarck in the North Atlantic. This event was a turning point as it allowed the British fleet to destroy one of Nazi Germany's most dangerous warships. A special chapter in the history of the Catalina were the night operations of the Black Cats, which began in 1942 in the Pacific. Heavy losses of PBYs in daytime operations due to vulnerability to anti-aircraft fire and fighter attacks forced the Allies to change tactics. The Japanese actively used night transport to supply their island garrisons, which became ideal targets for Catalinas equipped with radar. Squadron VP-12, with aircraft painted black, began night raids in the Solomon Islands in December 1942. They were followed by other units, and by the end of 1943, the Black Cats reached peak effectiveness, as improved radar and tactics allowed them to destroy Japanese landing craft with minimal losses. Another important role of the Catalina was rescue operations known as Dumbo. The name, borrowed from the Disney cartoon, was originally used in radio communications but became attached to PBYs that rescued pilots who crashed in the ocean or on remote islands. During the battles in the Solomon Islands, Catalinas patrolled near combat zones, ready to pick up downed pilots. According to a report from the Tulagi base for January-August 1943, just 3 PBYs rescued 161 pilots. In the East Indies and Philippine campaigns, the results were even better thanks to improved equipment and tactics. Dumbo became a symbol of hope for pilots, and one even said that he always stood and saluted whenever he saw a PBY in the sky. The Catalinas were also used as torpedo bombers, though after 1943 this role became rare due to the emergence of more modern aircraft. Torpedoes were carried on external racks, and a sight was installed in the pilot's cockpit. Night attacks by groups of PBYs produced some results, but the high risks forced the Allies to reassign Catalinas to patrol and rescue missions. PBYs operated both from shore bases and from seaplane tenders, ships that provided mooring, maintenance, and supplies. Such bases were deployed in bays or river mouths, where aircraft moored to buoys, and additional buoys marked the limits of the water aerodrome. Despite significant achievements, the aircraft had serious problems that manifested in combat conditions. The lack of protective armor and self-sealing fuel tanks made the Catalina an easy target for enemy fighters and anti-aircraft guns, leading to heavy losses. These problems forced the Allies to change the tactics of using the PBY, in particular to begin flying at night to reduce risks and preserve the aircraft's effectiveness. One of the brightest examples of the Catalina's vulnerability was the operation of the 101st Squadron on December 27, 1941, in the Dutch East Indies. 6 PBY-4 aircraft took off from Ambon Base to attack Japanese forces in the harbor of Jolo in the Sulu Islands. Each aircraft carried 3 bombs weighing 226 kilograms, and the plan called for an attack from level flight in 2 groups of 3 machines. But the operation went completely off plan. The first group, arriving at the target, began circling while waiting for the second, which gave Japanese gunners time to prepare. The second group, not noticing the first, went straight into attack, provoking a hail of anti-aircraft fire. The leader of the first group, waiting until dawn, led his PBYs at an altitude of 3,650 meters, where they were met with accurate fire from the ground and ships. 6 Japanese Zero fighters launched an organized attack. The PBYs, lacking armor and with weak armament, could not effectively defend themselves. The formation broke apart and each aircraft attacked on its own. The leader of the first group was shot down, and 2 other PBYs began diving, dropping bombs from 3,000 meters. One of them caught fire, and 3 crew members bailed out with parachutes, while the other 4 abandoned the aircraft after a forced landing. The second PBY, with its gunners killed and controls damaged, also made a forced landing and burned. Survivors returned to their forces 2 weeks later, evading Japanese patrols. The second group lost 1 aircraft but hit a Japanese cruiser and a transport ship. This operation revealed the main weaknesses of the PBY-4. The absence of protective armor left the crew and critical systems defenseless. Unprotected fuel tanks were easily punctured, often leading to fires. The onboard machine guns had magazines with only 50 rounds, and their high rate of fire meant ammunition ran out in 10 seconds. Reloading required time during which the gunner was defenseless, and the transparent gun positions made him a visible target for enemy pilots. Japanese fighters quickly learned to exploit this weakness, attacking during reloading. The lack of cohesion in group actions also complicated defense. In battles, PBYs rarely maintained formation for mutual fire support, making them easy prey. Active maneuvering could reduce the effectiveness of fighter attacks, but it required high crew coordination since pilots could not see what was happening behind them. Problems with armament and tactics became obvious in the first months of the war, especially in the Philippines, where the 10th Patrol Wing lost most of its 43 PBY-4 aircraft in a week of combat. By December 13, 1941, only 11 operational aircraft remained, which were moved to the city of Manado and later to Surabaya. At the end of February 1942, after the disbandment of the 102nd Squadron, 4 surviving aircraft retreated to Australia. These losses forced the Allies to reconsider their tactics. Daytime operations proved too dangerous due to the superiority of Japanese fighters and anti-aircraft guns. Switching to night missions, such as the Black Cat operations, was the response to these challenges. The installation of radar on the PBY made it possible to detect targets in darkness, while black paint made the aircraft less visible. This tactic, initiated in 1942, significantly reduced losses since Japanese transport often took place at night, making it vulnerable to Catalina attacks. Another example of adaptation was the improvement of armament and equipment. In later models, such as the PBY-6A, armor and better radar were added, increasing survival chances. However, the early models, such as the PBY-4, remained vulnerable throughout 1941. Losses in the Philippines, where Japanese aircraft destroyed PBYs on the ground, emphasized the need to disperse aircraft and use remote bases. For example, on December 11, 1941, 7 PBYs returning from patrol were destroyed by Japanese fighters right on the water. After the end of World War II, the Catalina left an unforgettable mark in the history of aviation, becoming the most widespread seaplane of all time. Although its military use in the U.S. Navy quickly ended, the aircraft found new applications in civilian and military roles in different countries. From being withdrawn from U.S. service to fighting fires, surveying the Earth, and transporting passengers, the Catalina demonstrated its flexibility and durability, maintaining its reputation as a workhorse, operating even in the most remote places of the world. By 1948, only 5 Catalinas remained in the U.S. Navy, mostly in reserve units. The last Catalina was withdrawn from service on January 3, 1957 in Atlanta. A new generation of patrol aircraft displaced the Catalina due to its outdated capabilities. However, in other countries, the Catalina continued to serve much longer. In Central and South America, particularly in Brazil and Mexico, different models of the Catalina were used until the 1970s, mostly for search and rescue. Denmark used a group of 8 aircraft until 1971, basing them in Greenland for patrolling Arctic waters. After the war, many Catalinas entered the surplus military equipment market. Without weapons, armor, and some radio equipment, their payload capacity increased significantly, making the aircraft attractive for private airlines. Thanks to the ability to take off and land on water and land runways, Catalinas became ideal for transport in remote regions. In the Caribbean and in Alaska, Catalinas carried passengers and cargo, delivering people and equipment to places inaccessible to other aircraft. Some aircraft equipped with luxury interiors were used to transport wealthy clients for hunting or fishing in remote corners. One of the most common civilian uses of the Catalina was firefighting, especially in the US and Canada. The aircraft were modified with large internal tanks holding over 4,000 liters of water. While skimming the surface at about 115 kilometers per hour, the aircraft could scoop 3,000 liters of water in 15 to 20 seconds. This ability allowed Catalinas to effectively combat fires in remote forest areas. Reliability and structural simplicity made them indispensable for such missions, while the relatively low cruising speed provided accuracy in water drops. Another peaceful role of the Catalina was scientific exploration of the Earth. The spacious hull allowed the installation of special equipment for mineral prospecting. Its long range and low speed, once advantages for patrolling, were perfectly suited for scientific missions. Catalinas were used for mapping deposits and conducting aerial surveys, supporting mining industry development in various countries. Among commercial versions of the Catalina, unique projects are worth mentioning. For example, one aircraft that, after serving in the Soviet Union, was lost in 1942 during a German submarine attack in Novaya Zemlya. Another example was the Transatlantic, which an American airline purchased in 1939 to survey routes in the North Atlantic. In 1944, this aircraft joined the U.S. Navy for cargo transport. Such stories highlight the versatility of the Catalina, which could adapt to the most diverse tasks. In the post-war period, the last serial version was produced between January and September 1945. The 175 aircraft of this model included improvements such as additional protection, a new radar, and weapons. Of these, 30 were sent to the Soviet Union, and 75 were used by the U.S. Air Force as rescue aircraft. Canadian versions of the Catalina, with a tall tail and de-icing, served in Commonwealth countries, demonstrating the durability of the design. Thank you for watching. See you in new videos.